Welcome to another episode of the Battlefields Bourbon podcast. I'm Elijah, joined by my co-host Jack, and we're coming to you live from the Bell House in historic downtown Winchester, preserved by the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. We've got a special episode for you this evening. This is going to be our Christmas Eve special edition episode. This one's going to be a little bit more different than what you're normally used to. We're going to have two different bourbons on the show tonight. Going to be one that we each find to be special in its own way, something we each want to have for a special occasion. But yeah, without further ado, Jack, what do you have for the beverage of choice?
For this episode that nobody asked for, we kind of decided, we couldn't pick a bourbon specifically for the both of us for this episode. So we thought, what better way to do it than let us pick our own that we thought would be best for holiday, Christmas time, something to sip on this time of year. So I chose Devil's Due Distillery's Cherry Bounce. So
much a bourbon.
I know. Well, it's bourbon whiskey with other natural flavors. So I'll take that. So anybody listening that's like, like Elijah, that's not the normal bourbon. Well, listen, it's Christmas and I'm going to do what I want. So
it's got some historic roots.
It's okay. yeah. And I can tie it in. So don't worry. This Devil's Due is an amazing distillery, a micro distillery in a way, in Jefferson County, West Virginia. Elijah's toured twice now.
Something like
one
that.
time with me. It's just a cool little atmosphere. It's a small little place tucked in a wood lot, and it's just some dudes making whiskey, and they're just having fun with it. And the Cherry Bounce is something I think they did last year, and they brought it back this year. They source their cherries locally in Jefferson County from Twin Ridge Orchard, and their grains used for their whiskey is also sourced locally as well. So it's exciting to see that, especially, and that's something they pride themselves in with a lot of their other products, is sourcing as much of the ingredients used in the bourbon as they can. That's Cherry Bounce. Elijah's never had Cherry Bounce. As soon as I got it, I tried it because I was excited. And the reason I was really excited is because of the history with it. Cherry Bounce has been around for a while. It's normally done with brandy and mixed with other fruits, but other, adaptations of it have formed with bourbon and other liquors. But it was supposedly George Washington's favorite drink, his drink of choice. Among the few recipes known to have been used by the Washington family, it's this one for cherry. It's Cherry Bounce is one that they know for sure. Washington drank it as a brandy-based drink in the 18th century, but it's said that the General Washington packed a canteen of it along his trip across the Allegheny Mountains in 1784. So Washington liked it, so I'm gonna like it, right? That's the logic there. And the Washington family, matter of fact, ends up a lot of them settling in Jefferson County, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of the historic homes that you see out there are built by a Washington or lived in by a Washington, and George himself was probably there at some point or another. Of those homes.
And there's a reason that there's a Washington High School there, and all those sorts of things. Charles is I think it's Charles Washington. I may be wrong on that, but the name Charles is a Washington name, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. That's where the name Charlestown comes from. That's Cherry Bounce. Did you want to try it now, or did you want to talk about your pick, and then we can go into it?
Yeah. We'll each have our own, I think, first, just to...
Elijah's scared.
Even now, yeah, I'm terrified of this one. But yeah, my pick for the evening is Evan Williams 12-year, 101 proof. So this one is... you'll see it in the picture. It's a red labeled Evan Williams. This one is a special edition for a special episode, of course. Comes from the Evan Williams Distillery in downtown Louisville. You can only get it there and over in Japan. This was initially one of the bourbons that they supplied just for Japan. I don't know why distilleries do like special Japanese only releases, but Evan Williams and Heaven Hill is one of those. I think it's something to do with some Japanese company owns the rights to certain mash bills or something like that, so they supply them with like premium release stuff. But yeah, now it's available in the States at the distillery. If you go down on Whiskey Row, downtown Louisville, you can get this one for like 100 something, 120. I can't remember what I paid for it. Don't really care to remember because it was expensive.
That's wild.
But it's a good one. It's a good one, and it's one of those ones that you don't buy very often. Maybe once or twice every 2 years or so, or anytime you make the trip down to Kentucky. So it's not like an everyday sipper. But this one is just Evan Williams' mash bill of 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. So that's interesting to note that the malted barley is the secondary grain, whereas the rye is so minimal that it's the tertiary grain there. And again, that's made by Heaven Hill Distillery because they do all of the Evan Williams products and stuff. And just a little background on Evan Williams. He was technically, I mean, at least historically speaking, Kentucky's first licensed distiller. He was a wharf master in Louisville and everything. Big community guy down there, and he ended up obviously making whiskey like many folks in Kentucky did at that time. 1783, I think, is around the time that he started. So close to Washington's era as well. So these two folks kind of line up with each other. Not to say that they would ever have known the other personally, but definitely in that time period. But yeah, if we want to pour a glass of each one and give it a sip.
You don't have a pop.
Yeah, I don't have a pop. This one, unfortunately, is just a plastic cap that screws on instead of a cork. So
my Devil's Due Cherry Bounce does have a cork.
Yeah, you have fun with that. That's your moment of glory right there. There it is.
Wasn't the best pop.
Well, it's also a small bottle too, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a
pint size.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Evan Williams, I mean, I got this one at the distillery just because of how much I like it from the few exclusives that you taste at the distillery. You get the option to buy. I mean, you can buy one of each if you wanted to, but it's just one per, like, I think 90 days or something like that, or one per day.
Yeah.
Certain distilleries have certain allocation rules and stuff, but this trip was my go-to because the master blend, we'll get to that one in another episode, but the master blend, for those that know, that stuff is good.
What do you think?
That's Evan Williams.
Yeah.
Good as always.
Yeah, this the cherry bounce off the nosing, obviously, shocker, Elijah, you get cherries. Wow. But you do get that subtle bourbon smell, the nosing you normally get from some bourbon that comes through, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be enjoyed at room temp. I don't know if it's different for the other liquors that are done, to make cherry bounce, mm-hmm. but there's on occasion I've heard it, where you can pop it in the fridge. But for this one, and you do it in small portions as well. So you're not pouring like a cup of it on ice. It's definitely something to enjoy in a Glencairn glass or, in something small. And it's traditionally drank between the period of Thanksgiving and Christmas. So mm-hmm. perfect for this time of year. So I'm going to give it and it's got the color on it too. It's got like a dark red, but if you knew bourbon was in it, you can see where that kind of, amberish tint comes in.
Mm-hmm. And it's 90 proof too. So that's not some low strength stuff. Cause some of those other flavored whiskeys and stuff from different distilleries, they drop the proof down to like 70, 60, something like light, so you can, I guess, drink a lot of it. But this one, there's no room for that because that's just as much potent as any other bourbon.
Yeah, Devil's Due also does that root beer bourbon, which I think is more of a flavored. I don't know. It's not like this. The root beer bourbon's very like root beer.
Yeah.
Strong with bourbon. This is more bourbon with cherries.
Yeah.
I like you're infused in a way. but it's very subtle. It's got the heat to it that the bourbon brings, which is nice, especially this time of year to enjoy something this sweet that's got a little bit of a heat to it. But I think the best part is the aftertaste. And I know, Elijah, going into, when I first told you about this, you were like, because you've never had it, you were like, it's got to taste like cough syrup or something. So I was going into it thinking that too. But I think
surprised. It's
not syrupy, which is interesting because, all those sugars that are getting drawn out from the cherries, being with the bourbon, you'd think there'd be some thickness to it, but no, it's really light. And the aftertaste and how long it lingers for is probably the best part. It leaves you wanting to take another sip. So I'm a big fan. I like what these guys do too. It's really cool. The bottle you guys will see in the picture for the pour profile. I think their labels are pretty iconic for Devil's Due. You look at any other varieties of whiskeys they do. They do like an Old West style whiskey, a typical barrel aged, things like that. They also do a ton of flavored moonshines, but their labels on their bottles are pretty neat. And they have definitely a good designer in their corner that's helping them do that. Because I would just buy these just for the bottle alone.
Yeah, no, they're cool labels.
Yeah,
good design. But now I'm kind of excited to try it now that you've given it a good breakdown.
Yeah,
but,
I did my best. Do you wanna? I'll pour you a glass if.
Sure. Yeah. We'll do the old trade off here. While I'm pouring this, I'll give you a little I guess education on it for Evan Williams. That good?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fair. So this one is, and Evan Williams in general has this unique kind of sweetness to it, and I would assume that that's probably because of how high it is with the corn and the malted barley, and then just so little rye content in it that you're not really getting any kind of spice there. It's got more of a I don't know what the word would be, more like a honey vanilla caramel. There is a little bit of cinnamon spice in there, but I think that's more so from the proof than the rye, because obviously there's not that much in there. I would say that it's probably just due to the proof that you're getting that little warmth in there, getting a little kick out of it. But it's very easy drinking. Good smell to it, right? Like a nice sweet corn almost.
It's not like a punch in the face. It's pretty subtle. And
yeah, the age and the proof on that one is like just
what's the 12
perfect,
years?
Yep, 12 years old, 101 proof. Just a good.
Wow.
Yeah, good all around.
What's the mash bill?
78% corn, 12% rye, or not 12% malted barley, 10% rye.
That corn's.
Yeah, you can taste
that
it.
Corn's
it's like
there.
Sweet, it's sweet corn. It's
wow.
Good, though.
That's just probably, and I'm sure we've had high corn bourbons on here. Maybe I can't remember now, but this is the one where it's hit me the most. Of you can tell, and it's not. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like I've been waiting for it because I've heard about it. I've heard about with weeded whiskeys, things like that. The flavors you get. The rye, especially with some of the Catoctin Creek stuff we've tried. Mm-hmm. I've experienced that. So to experience something with a high corn content is really nice.
Yeah, and this is one of those ones that you can definitely taste the sweet corn through.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Through all of the the flavor notes and everything. You get your normal things that aren't necessarily in the bourbon, like your caramel, vanilla, all that stuff. Things that are just byproduct of the compound itself. Whereas you're actually tasting the corn that's actually in the whiskey. So that one's cool.
This is crazy cool. All right, give the Cherry Bounce a try, Elijah. What do you get off that nosing?
You can smell their bourbon in it for sure.
Yeah,
their bourbon has a unique kind of nose to it. I don't dislike that at all, though. I like it. Just a little cherry, though. Is it strong in the cherry?
Find out. You'll get the heat, you get the bourbon, and then you get the cherries.
Wow,
it's nice. Yeah. I think
on the back end you can really get that, and it's not like it's not an artificial cherry either. It's you can tell that they used real cherry in that to.
It's not like a Shirley Temple type of cherry,
Yeah,
where it's
those are like fresh off the tree, obviously as advertised in Jefferson County.
Yeah.
But I like that.
Yeah, and it's like that's what. As soon as I tasted it, I was like, I can see why this is a Thanksgiving to Christmas type of beverage. It just fits well, and especially if you're a whiskey bourbon drinker, to have this in your arsenal of something to pop out, and when you've got company over or something like that you're not, and maybe that company's not used to drinking a 12-year Evan Williams or something like that, to have this as a middle ground for people. I think is exciting. It's a nice conversation piece, and it's just cool. Like I never knew about it. I knew about it with Washington, but I was like, oh, no one makes it anymore. It was like just a drink back in the day. And then as soon as I saw it was going to be a Black Friday release at Devil's Due, I was standing in line with a bunch of other people that day, and I was telling you earlier, I was the only one that walked away with buying one bottle. So I feel like I should have bought more. Everyone else in that line was buying 2, 3, 5 bottles. It was crazy, but I can see why. I mean, it's just something nice to have, so I'm hoping it's something they do next year as well.
More than likely. We'll have to get in touch with Ken, shoot him a text, and see what he's got in mind. Yeah,
if you guys, if listeners are ever in Jefferson County, so if you're ever going to visit Harper's Ferry, or you're in the area, you're in the northern Shenandoah Valley, swing by their place. It's easy to get to right off. I think it's Route 9 is the
it's Route
highway
9.
there. Yeah, Route 9. And swing in there. There's a tasting room, and you can taste everything from their whiskeys to their moonshine.
And you get a Glencairn with the tasting too. I mean, it's like
$12.
Taste whatever you want.
Yeah,
and you get the Glencairn.
And then you get to go in the back and see it all. All the magic to, what it comes to, and it's not massive.
It's a relatively small operation.
It's a small operation.
It's all right there. And I mean, that's cool to see how well they're doing with just where they're at right now. And I'm sure in the coming years, as they begin to grow, they're going to do some really big things. Because, I mean, even as it is right now, they've only been out a few years as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, it's only, I think, no later than the past 5 years from what we got to talk about.
Yeah, pretty sure. So once they start putting out some really aged stuff, that'll be interesting to see. But Cherry Bounce in the meantime, that gets it done. That's some good stuff.
Oh yeah, and the cool thing is the valley itself, and obviously we're a little biased coming from the valley,
of course,
is creating its own little bourbon experience trail in a way. I mean, you got some cool stuff on the other side of the mountains like Ragged Branch and A. Smith Bowman. What's another one I'm forgetting?
There's a few over
Mount Defiance. There's the cool, there's ones we've hit on.
KO and Manassas.
Yeah. And I guess Catoctin Creek doesn't do bourbon; they just do rye whiskeys. Yeah,
but they do a damn good job of it.
Oh my gosh, sure. Yeah. So the valley itself, with Devil's Due, and then another one we'll definitely cover in the future is Filibuster, which is in Maurytown. Right in the center of the valley, just north of Woodstock.
Battle of Tom's Brook.
So we'll probably do that for a Tom's Brook episode. And Black Draft over in Martinsburg as well. Another great distillery that's coming out with some really high quality products from what I hear from Elijah. So haven't tried it yet, but the valley's kind of making its name for itself, which is really cool. It's really cool to be able to drive 30, 40 minutes up and down 81 and pick up a bottle of something that is going to be good. So that's
all locally
that's exciting.
Grown and made too. So that's cool to admire. Something that was grown. You probably drove past the field that the corn was growing in that made that whiskey. It's exciting stuff. Hopefully Winchester will get one soon.
I know.
If we don't do it ourselves, but that's pipe dream.
Battlefield Bourbon.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, we can keep sipping, and this is the episode that I said it earlier, but the episode that nobody asked for. This is we're just.
Why is that?
Yeah. Why is that? You may ask, and you're listening this far in. Elijah and I just wanted to first of all thank you all for listening so far. This is episode 13. We're coming to a close in 2023, and we thought it would be a nice time to not clog up your holidays with too much of more history that we're doing, because we've got a great year of 2024 episodes planned out, some great topics, some great guests. So kind of just wanted to wrap the year up in 2023 with just, why we're doing this and who we are and, why is this even a thing? Because maybe you don't ask those questions, but I know when I listen to other podcasts, I'm like, what got these people into it? Why are they talking about this stuff? So we thought if we shined a little bit of a light on that and explain a little bit about who we are and what our background is, hopefully that doesn't scare you away from listening to future episodes. So, that's what this episode's going to be. So, we hope you stick around and listen to it and
listen to us ramble about ourselves for a few minutes.
So, if you want Elijah, why are we here?
Well,
how did we get here?
Yeah,
that's
the big
idea
question.
Of this whole thing. And then we can dive a little deeper into who we are and our backgrounds and stuff. But
if people want to hear it.
Yeah, but if you want to kind of explain the idea of the podcast.
So this whole thing, relatively new to us, just began, obviously, recording in July. Had the idea in our back pocket since, what would you say, maybe February, March, somewhere around that time.
About a year ago, yeah.
About a year ago. Because I had sent you a Snapchat of my metal detector, and those of you that are familiar, my relic hunting friends and stuff that are listening to this, an XP Deus, the way it collapses down, it's a collapsible detector. I had it sitting in the kitchen, and I sent Jack a Snapchat of it just randomly, and he was like, "Is that a microphone or a podcast mic?" And I was like, "No, that's my detector, but what'd you have in mind?" He's like, "Why not a podcast?" So it's like, actually, that's a great idea. So, I mean, I think you may have been just,
I was probably joshing around.
Yeah. And I was like, well, actually, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. That would be a killer idea. Got to thinking on it.
I think you thought about it more than I did for the next couple months.
Dude, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. It was just so original, but also something that we both... Because obviously you had mentioned, why not we do something about whiskey and Civil War history, and obviously there's so much you can do with that. Just trying to, and then over the next couple of months, trying to iron out details, come up with a name, really get this thing going. How would we do it? How would we get the equipment? All this stuff.
Yeah, it was the idea, but how do you actually make it happen?
Because we both had no idea, no experience in any of this stuff.
And I wasn't thinking about it as hard as you were. So
I
was in the middle of, redoing the Civil War Museum downtown.
Yeah, you had your hands full.
And I think in May, you were like, we should really do this. I remember in May, it was around May, you were like, we really gotta do this. And
because I was pitching the idea to all my friends and family, and they're like, you need to do that. That just sounds like it would do really well.
Yeah.
And one of my coworkers at my old job, a good friend of ours now, he was like, we were just shooting the shit at work, and I had told him about the idea, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool," and I was like, "Yeah, we just can't come up with a name. I just don't know what to call it." And he was like, "Why don't you call it Battlefields and Bourbon?" And I was like,
"Duh!"
And he said it as a joke, he was just joking, and I'm like, No, that's fantastic. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's how the name came to be.
Yeah, it wasn't even our own idea in terms of the name itself. So credit to Jesse for that one.
Yeah,
but,
I think when you came to me with that, I was like, okay, so now there's a name. So now Elijah just can't keep messaging me saying hey, let's do a podcast. Now it's let's do Battlefields and Bourbon, and I'm like, God, that's such a cool thing and name.
You put the name to it, and it all starts to fall into place. What happened next? Well, I started making the social media accounts.
Yeah, you made those on May, June, pretty early on.
It's April and May, actually.
Oh God.
Yeah. The creation date shows April and May. It was crazy.
You were messing around with logos then too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our logo. Fun fact: our logo that you see on our socials and everything. I made that on a logo editing app. Didn't have anybody from Fiverr or anybody do that. I just was messing around one evening, just trying to see what would look cool, and pulled that one out of my ass. But yeah, seriously, I mean, it looked good, and I was like, okay, let's run with it. So that's where that came from. But once we got the social medias, the logos and everything, it was this is really starting to come to fruition. We've got all the stuff. Now what about the equipment? And that's where Hunter comes into play.
Yeah, Hunter.
So those of you that watched our live stream when we did the giveaway for our Battlefields and Bourbon Glencairn glass, Hunter was the one to draw the name from the hat. Mm-hmm. He is one of my childhood best friends. He also has a podcast. So he had all the equipment. And at the time when we first had this idea, I didn't even know he had a podcast. He just invited me randomly to be on in one of his episodes. He's like, just meet me at work one day. I just want to talk to you about something. And I thought it was something bad, like, you know, he's going to say like, oh, I'm sick or something like that. Like, I'm not doing well. I don't know. I was expecting the worst. And then he just like invites me into his office and he's like, yeah, I got a podcast. Welcome to the episode. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, that's perfect because, matter of fact, we are starting our own. And he was like, well, if you ever want to use our equipment or my equipment, just let me know. So that's how we got our first handful of episodes down. And under
I mean,
belt.
we banked a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think the last one recorded on that equipment was it the archaeology? No. Yeah, it was probably the archaeology episode.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And then we were able to, after doing those first couple episodes, find a sponsor, which is the Battlefields Foundation. They were, kind enough to believe in what we were doing and, thought it was a really good idea and saw the potential in it and wanted to invest, which was, super great. And yeah, they were able to assist us with finding a lot of this equipment and, reaching some other folks and getting our hands on some cool pieces for the show. So, and then that's kind of to where we are. And it's been great tons of great feedback from folks. It's been a lot of fun for us to do because we just get to sit around, talk and drink and have cool enjoy. People on, and
doubt.
There's probably a solid, oh my God, there's another 13 episodes worth of audio if we hit record with the time we spend talking with our guest and people before and after recordings, whether it's Aaron or Phil Spoggy from a couple episodes ago or Jim Gerker or Nick Pacerno, the people we've had on, Mike Robinson, everyone we've had on. We probably plan, and you guys listen, that's an uncut episode of an hour, no more than like an hour and 15 minutes, let's say, at the max. There's got to be an hour before, we planned recording an hour before that, and we spend an hour talking. Yeah, and then we're like, crap, we got to record. And that's without any bourbon involved.
Just good conversation with a lot of
Oh my gosh,
folks,
these are such great people. And they care about getting they care about what they've researched and the information and the knowledge they're willing to bring to this small but, mighty platform. So it's, that's the best part about it. It's so much fun to be able to talk with these other historians and like-minded folks. And, the exciting part is just the new people we get to meet, because a lot of them are people, from our inner circle that I can ask, say, hey, help me out a little bit.
Right.
But to be able to have people reach out, which we've had, wanting to do an episode or two is like the coolest thing ever. And then the names that are, the potential guests and topics that we haven't covered or folks we haven't had on that are interested in coming on because they've heard about it is pretty cool too. So it's super exciting and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, 2024 is going to be a big 160 year. So a lot of 160th anniversary battles we're going to cover. So we're excited to do that, of course. But yeah, that's kind of the origin story of the podcast. I'm glad Elijah stayed, headstrong and persistent.
I was not giving up on that one.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I could live with it. I could live without it. And then I was like, Elijah really wants to do this. And I was like, I like to talk sometimes. So,
but now it's one of the things you look forward to, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Probably my favorite episode to do so far up until this point. It was probably second Winchester because it was the first one. You had all the,
we were just so new to it. Yeah. It was just like, how do we do this?
We were super knowledgeable about it. I feel like, and that was a fun one to do for sure. So yeah, that was what was that bourbon? Was that Bland?
Eagle Rare.
Eagle Rare.
Yeah, Eagle Rare for that one. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a cool one.
You can definitely tell just by looking back at our first couple episodes to now how we've gotten comfortable with things and and all that. And I'm sure our listeners have probably appreciated that we're not so rigid with it. From, the beginning, where we're just kind of, not that we don't know what we're talking about, we do. It's just a way of trying to convey that message in a relaxed and casual kind of tone, as we're doing right now. But
this is probably more casual than anything because I don't have any notes in front of me for their topic.
Yeah,
it's
no
just
maps,
us.
no notes,
just bourbon and wires.
Yeah. About us.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
Aside from obviously the podcast, the origin story, what got us into history, what got us, to this point in our careers to where we wanted to share our knowledge with you of the bourbon, the battlefields, the Civil War history, just anything and everything we can tell you about this stuff. Jack.
Oh man.
Yeah. What got you into it? Where did you begin?
4 years old is my earliest time frame I can identify with photographs as well as maybe memory. I can't remember. I mean, it's hard to remember stuff, but 4 years old is the date I roughly, I can just go back to. And I grew up near the first 7 years of my life near the Manassas battlefield. So it was near that a lot. My parents would take me out there. And I had my grandmother who lived in Northeast Mississippi, who worked for the National Park Service on the Natchez Trace Parkway. So going to Mississippi every year for like the holiday season, grandma of course was going to take the grandkid that likes history. I feel like every grandparent likes that. So going to Shiloh, going to Vicksburg, all that stuff. And my other grandmother lives near the Wilderness battlefield. So, if you're near the Wilderness, then you're near Chancellorsville, and then you're near Fredericksburg in Spotsylvania. So having all that happen, and then it was just something that stuck with me. I don't know. I was just fascinated by it. There was no specific event, but it was just the fact that I gravitated towards the Civil War. I was obsessed with it as a kid. There was career day in preschool, and I dressed up as a Civil War soldier.
That's your career.
Everyone was like, "What do you want to be?" And I was like, "The Civil War man." So I was like, I don't know. So I mean, if that could be a thing, and lo and behold, I kind of can do that. So yeah, that was my foundation of it. And then when I was 7 years old, moved to the Valley. Right near Starfort. My parents purchased a house near Starfort, which is a preserved earthwork fortification we talked about in episode 1, related to 2nd Winchester. Well, who's the group that preserved it and still owns it today? The Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. So I just continued to I was living within yards of a Civil War fort. I like the Civil War. Now there's battlefields nearby. You grow up biking and doing other stuff. And at some point it clicked for me. I really wanted to do living history and reenacting. I often forget that nowadays that was the
I remember those days when you used to do that.
Yeah, that's how if I had to find a way, how could I get closer to the thing I'm obsessed with, the Civil War, is dress up like it, run around on the ground like it, and pretend to be it in a way as a kid. Your imagination's just going everywhere. So yeah, I mean, I had my dad drag me out to a Cedar Creek reenactment and, buy all the clothes that I could. And then I got involved, I don't know how I did. My dad worked with a guy that was a really hardcore living historian, still is today. And my dad was his boss. And, so I guess the guy was they had talked at some point about my interest in the Civil War, and he knew he was. So he invited me out to be a part of this living history encampment at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. So they were portraying, I'm sure it was 61, Camp Johnson. There was Confederates camps, on the grounds of Glen Burnie, which is the historic home there. So I did that and then kind of just stayed in touch with, people. And this is around probably 9, 10 years old. And then just kept doing that. And then through that, I got involved for a hot second with the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. going to like their youth programs and helping with those, which turned really quick into once about 2012, 2013, the Battlefields Foundation starts restoring Starfort, clearing back a lot of the brush, putting interpretive signs in, things like that, putting trails in. And then I run into the Battlefields Foundation folks at some event there, and they sucked me in, and I was here I am, So that was 2012. So that's 11 years ago. I was 2012. I was 11 years old, and from that point, I started volunteering with the Battlefields Foundation. They took ownership of the Civil War Museum downtown. I started volunteering there a lot more for them. As soon as I could work, legally and get paid for it. So this is 2016. How old do you have to be to work and get paid? 16 in Virginia?
It was 15.
Is it 15?
It might be. I don't know.
I don't know. Whatever that age is.
I'm not a lawyer.
I feel like it's 20. You have to be 16, I think. Yeah. 15 with a worker's permit, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's a permit. Yeah. That's right.
So 2017, I'm finally 16. And I could start getting paid at the museum. But I was helping with like conferences and programs on the side. Mm-hmm. And then, from there, did that all up until I worked at that museum and helped out with events for the Battlefields Foundation. Graduated high school, started doing a resource management associate internship that developed into, resource management at a higher level. And then, now I'm a park ranger and resource preservation. So I work a lot with the land preservation side of things. So
he's the guy.
Yeah, that's the fun part. So, I'm now 22 and, taking on a lot of the land acquisition side of things for the Battlefields Foundation. I've basically done almost every job except for the comptrolling work for the Battlefields Foundation. Everything from development and membership to visitor services to, land management, everything you can think of, volunteer coordination. I mean, I've done it all, events, things like that. Continue to do it all when I need to. But I'm now working in the nitty gritty of preservation itself. So that's a crazy experience to actually see the sausage making of what it takes to save a battlefield from start to finish. So that's pretty cool. I'm just, and we kind of have a shared connection of our Civil War love over the years. We've known each other since middle school.
Way back when, over 10 years ago.
I know, that's crazy to even say.
We're old men now.
Yeah, old men. So, that's just been it. I've always been obsessed with the Civil War. I didn't go to college for it or anything. It's just something I've always loved, continue to love. I love history as a whole, but something about the American Civil War that just draws me in. So I don't really have a job. I just do, what I love every day and happen to get paid for it. So, that's me. I hope to write someday. I hope this podcast continues. I love giving tours. It's just, I eat, breathe, and sleep the American Civil War. There's probably not a freaking second I'm not thinking about it, which is sickening sometimes.
You and me both.
So, I know, it's sad. It's so sad, but it's amazing. And there's tons of people just like us out there. So that's a little bit about me. And within that journey, about in the middle school years, I met Elijah, our co-host, and
How
finally
did we meet? Was that like
football?
Football or track and field? Yeah,
football was first.
Football.
Yeah,
football
my
first.
7th grade year, your 8th grade year, I was playing football, and you were as well. Jameswood Middle School, go Bulldogs. I think we at some point I can't remember the exact moment, but we definitely made the connection that you liked Civil War, I liked Civil War, and you were the first person roughly my age I'd ever met that had an interest in the American Civil War. And still to this day, I know people now because I've been outside of Frederick County, but at that time when it's just, the couple hundred kids in school,
yeah,
and maybe like 20, you see a youth group on Sunday, it's like that's it. And I was like, Elijah's the one. He's the only one like me. So I thought that was so cool. And to hear your journey and how you got into it, it's not the same as mine, but it's all the same passion, love, and and thirst for it that we both share, but it's cool to see how other people got into it. So, Elijah, what brings you here?
What brings me to the table?
Yeah.
Well, for as long as I can remember, and even before that, my parents were toting me around to the NSSA at Fort Shenandoah for my dad shot there competitively, still does, and I was just there to watch, play as a kid. That was my thing. Just seeing that, growing up around that environment, shooting Civil War muskets competitively, being around all that. And then as a kid, just, following my dad around through the fields and woods and whatnot, metal detecting for Civil War relics. I know we talked about this in episode 9, archaeology and metal detecting, how I would just kind of, tail along with him before I could ever swing a metal detector, but just go with him to, because that was a thing to do for the day. But being around that and in that environment, growing up, I think kind of contributed to my passion for it. Believe it or not, starting out, my brother and I were more so into World War II history, because I guess that was the more recent conflict. That was something that we could, I don't want to say relate to a little more, but like, when you go outside and play Army and stuff, the toy guns.
It's what your
and
G.I.
stuff.
Joes are.
The
It's
G.I.
what
Joes,
yeah.
little toy Tommy guns.
It was
and
all
that
World War
stuff.
II stuff.
Exactly,
so,
yeah. And we would always play like PC games as kids, Medal of Honor and Battlefield 1942, like all the World War II games and stuff. And that was really where that was going when we were kids, was like World War II history.
Yeah.
Not to say that we didn't appreciate Civil War history.
No, I mean, it was the same, obviously same era. So I remember that. I always was frustrated. There wasn't like Civil War stuff. Yeah, games or action figures. I'm sure my parents found some for me just to shut me up. But yes, that was a huge, I could understand why kids would want to be more World War II faced.
Because more of the bang bang, shoot 'em up, like machine guns and this kind of thing. Yeah, all the cool stuff that appeals to a little kid.
Tanks.
Tanks, yep. And then, I don't know, what really switched or flipped that switch for me to go like towards the Civil War route. Obviously getting into metal detecting and swinging a detector on my own and finding my own relics and stuff like that, that really set off a lot for me in terms of, just really being able to relate to the war, because you can dig up the things that these men were using. So that gained or caused me to gain an appreciation more so than I had before when you're out there doing that. But as I had gotten older, I got, out of it a little bit. Around the time that we met, actually, was when I was getting out of metal detecting. Because for a little while there, I think between like 7th and 8th grade, I just kind of stopped going, lost an interest in going. Not that I didn't care about it anymore, I just didn't really feel the need to. So for a little while there, I just kind of got out of it. It was a weird intermediate period there. And then my freshman year of high school, more or less, was when I really got back into it heavy. And now here we are.
Yeah.
But
every day,
literally every day. Yeah. Because it was just like the metal detecting and stuff like that, is really what brought me to the Civil War itself. But then as I got older with it, getting into high school and stuff, reading more of the books where you can understand what they're talking about, because you're old enough to know what that vocabulary means and such, when you're reading like primary accounts of battles and memoirs and letters and what have you. So as I got older, the appreciation really kind of deepened for it, because you can understand it more.
As you were researching more,
battle maps.
You talked about this in the archaeology episode. Like you were like the recent metal detecting, Elijah, was doing. I'm sure now you're doing like with the GPS stuff, but back in high school, you weren't doing as much as that. But you were putting the research in on maps and camps and things like that, which is probably because as you're learning how to learn differently in high school, you're having to do different types of assignments and and find different ways to, your homework's not the same as it was in middle school. So
right.
you're being tested a lot more in different ways. That's educated you on how to kind of take what you've learned in school on how to learn and find out information and apply that to, this crime scene that is, digging up what's in the ground, finding who was here, why they were here, when they were here, what they carry, what troops, all those things, and apply them. So I think that's kind of what sets you on the path where you are now, which is, I think, a lot higher, a lot more elevated at the type of work you do when it comes to metal detecting than other people that are your age or even older that just go out there and swing the stick and take a cool picture and call it a day. Like it's a mission every time. And
because that whole, when I got into that realm of starting to really research things, that's like, I just like to know things. It bothers me when I don't know something. Especially in terms of this, like whenever I find something, I want to know who was there to lose that, like who was there when, like I got to tie it all together. Like I don't like the uncertainty. And I think that's just me as a whole throughout my life, regardless of, outside of Civil War stuff, I just like knowing things and like knowing like the certainties and
You're
stuff. Nosy.
In a good way.
Yeah.
I think we all, all historians, if you're a good historian, I feel like, all historians should be a little nosy because you always should want to know who, what, when, where, why, how.
You gotta do your due diligence.
Oh, you can't just take everything at face value or take a bullet and say that's a bullet. It's like, where was the bullet found? What type of bullet? Who would have carried these? Was it fired? Was it not? All those questions. Asking questions is, I think, like the biggest. That's my favorite part about you is the amount of questions you ask, because you don't just like settle for what it is. This is a bullet. It's, you want to know more and you ask those questions.
Yeah, that's where a lot of our where we come in. You and I both. Whenever I would find stuff, I'd always refer to you for, hey, who was here at this time? Who was here at this battle at this point? Just to try to like answer some questions that I have about sites and research to try to either confirm or deny the research that I've done, because I like having a second opinion, because the research that I do, especially when it comes to the Civil War, a lot of the ways that they describe things can be so up for interpretation. Mm-hmm. So for me, I like to have that second opinion for reassurance to make sure that I'm doing this right. You know what I mean? Like it's not just me making stuff up because I want it to fit the piece the way I want it to.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't, if you're comfortable with your results, you're probably doing something wrong, Yeah. The fact that if you're uncomfortable and you're like, keep digging, or, that answer is probably not what you want it to be because it's probably the right answer.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's the cool thing. I don't even know if we talked about it in an episode, but I was metal detecting with you recently, and we got to pull a couple bullets out of the ground. And, like, I was just like a kid on Christmas. And, like, it was like...
I wonder why that was.
Yeah, well, I can't talk about it. but it wasn't on preserved land. Everybody calm down. Private land. So, but it was so cool because you knew what happened there. You knew what happened around it. The odds of finding it were like maybe not. But then when you find it, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it just like, it seals for you. It's like putting a bookend on it. It's like, oh, well, according to this account and this map and this interpretive sign that's there now or nearby, and this book, everything says something happened here. Cool. Believe it? Sure, because it's history. It's written. You should take it. But easily someone could just be like, prove it to me. Prove it to me. What physical do you have unless you have, I don't know, a picture or something like that? Mm-hmm. What else do you have? That's when Elijah comes in. Swings.
That was always my thing with Civil War history is like, you can, when you're in high school and stuff, you have your world history classes. Mm-hmm. You read about all these different events and stuff. And you can read about them, study them, take the test on them, do whatever.
Check the boxes.
The Civil War, and I guess the American Revolution as well, depending on the part of the country you live in. the Civil War is like the one conflict here in Virginia that you can read about and go out and find exactly what you read about and hold it in your hand. And to me, that's just the coolest thing ever, is because I can go and read about, a battle of Winchester, first, second, or third, whatever.
Look at some maps.
Look at some maps, go out and get a permission, and then I can find the evidence of
You
that
can
battle.
find a bullet. It's like, why else would there be this, 3-ringer laying in the ground if there wasn't a battle here?
Right.
Or this fired bullet, or this, button, or whatever it is. It's just like, it's the stamp. It's like, yes, it did happen. And we talked a lot about that in the archaeology episode. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, go listen to that episode, because it brings a light to, a lot more detailed about, that bookend, that stamp of why archaeology is important.
But yeah, that was always my draw to Civil War history, was that one was so much more of an intimate connection, because you can go out there and hold these pieces of history. So it means more to me, because it's like that's something that happened in our backyards, and it's something that every American can appreciate, especially people in Virginia, because it's everywhere here. You can throw a rock and land on a Civil War site here in Virginia, especially in the Valley.
Yeah.
But we
often think of Virginia as the Valley.
Yeah.
The Valley as just Virginia.
Virginia is the Valley.
But it's true. If you go anywhere in Virginia, there's gonna be you're no less than like 20 miles from a Civil War quote unquote site.
Yeah.
Whether somebody was from that area, or soldiers marched through it, or there was a camp there, or a battle there, or something. Like something happened. I'd love to figure out that number of like, what's the furthest radius of
site to site.
Yeah, of like how far can you go? How far is far from a Civil War site in Virginia?
Yeah.
That'd be cool to figure out.
We'll have to figure that one out. That's an interesting
Or if
question.
our listeners know that number, just tell us.
Yeah. But, obviously the metal detecting archaeology side of things was my big pull to Civil War history. And then I when I was, I think 15 is the eligible age to shoot at the NSSA.
Yeah.
I began shooting there competitively with my dad, my brother, all of our good friends on the 7th Virginia Infantry. We got into it like that, and that was another cool way to garner an appreciation for Civil War history when you're out there, in uniform on a hot summer day in your wool, sweating your ass off, and it's like, man. And even then, you're in a relaxed uniform, so to speak, because you're only in, maybe a shirt and your pants, not your jacket.
Yeah.
So you can kind of experience what these guys went through, just an inkling of it, because you didn't march 20 miles
to get there to fire the gun.
To get there before you started this relay match. You drove there that morning, had your coffee and everything, and got ready to shoot some breakable targets, whereas these gents, they're out there marching, probably not eating very much, not drinking much water, and going out there and fighting for their lives. But even still, the fact that like the NSSA offers what they do, it gives you an appreciation for the technology and the muskets and the firearms of the period, to be able to shoot those competitively, learn them in the way that you can, and then just be able to depict a regiment from that period. It's not so much living history, because there are some folks in some regiments out there that don't depict in regiment's uniforms and stuff accurately.
Yeah, but people that call themselves living historians don't often do that either.
Yeah, so it's one of those things.
Yeah.
It's the thought that counts. It's the fact that you're out there putting forth the effort to at least show that you care and that that's an important thing for you. But yeah, that was one thing that aside from metal detecting got me into it, was that plus the shooting aspect of things and all that stuff. And that was always fun for me. It was I liked we would shoot Gardner bullets at the NSSA, and they always shot really well, in my opinion. Not to say that they would do that during the Civil War, because I know those were not a favored round. But the modern day castings of a Gardner, those shot pretty well.
Yeah. So what about today and kind of going forward, Elijah? What is, what about the Civil War? What about this history path you're on that you're excited about, or that's new, or that you're looking forward to, or something recently that's kind of, moved your trajectory a little bit than what got you here?
Obviously, metal detecting is still a major facet of my life. It's something that I pretty much research and dedicate my time to every single day in some capacity. But I also, with this podcast, it's given me more of a drive to really find out more things that I don't know. Reading books and accounts on the war for certain topics, not just for episodes, not just to prepare for an episode, but more so just for my own understanding. Because especially with this, knowledge is power. It's
you can never stop learning.
So. Yeah, I just love hearing about these instances and stuff. And once again, a book that we had mentioned in our last episode, Harris von Borch's Memoirs for the Confederate War of Independence, I think is what the official title is. There's just so much good information in there. I mean, just his daily life, the battles that he was involved in, being there, giving it from the perspective of someone that's standing on the front lines watching the battle unfold. Stuff like that. It's just like, it's crazy. And then the little anecdotal pieces in between of just like, random things that happen in military life that are like, oh wow, like I've found evidence of something like this happening, in a camp or on a battle site or what have you. Just finding that information and really building your I guess that in your brain of just knowledge of Civil War history, because it's cool stuff to know.
Oh yeah.
Not that you'll ever need that information for anything.
And not everybody finds it cool, but
yeah, just
when you get around a group of people that like the Civil War, you just slide right in and you fit right in, and it's great.
Throw those little fun facts around and stuff.
That's why we're able to sit here and talk with our guest for hours, or before and after recording. So it's it's useful
in its own right. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, like obviously those things. Maybe considering a new team at the NSSA. I know my brother had made mention of it. One of his Army buddies potentially interested. But for me personally, that would be a living history route plus NSSA. So once we figure out all the details, get the uniforms and stuff together. I know I've talked to you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Getting the historically accurate uniforms and everything. Maybe getting back into the NSSA side of things, because I've been out of that since I left for college way back when. But getting back into that, maybe getting into living history. I mean, there's just so many different opportunities to go with history, especially in an area like this where it's so local and so personal for everybody. I mean, you can't go wrong.
I'm excited to tour Battlefields with you.
That too? We've got a lot of that to do.
I don't think have we toured anything together yet?
Star Fort, right? Once, maybe?
No. Did we go there? You didn't record the video of me there.
No. Yeah, no, I didn't.
We haven't toured. So there's a lot I want to take Elijah to, and by no means am I...
Let's go to Vicksburg.
The bet will hold. Your horses there. I need to go back, but by no means am I a good tour guide or a good interpreter by any reason. But I love taking people to battlefields. It's just like... If I don't have to, even if I don't talk, it's just the fact of bringing people to these holy sites, sacred sites, hallowed ground, or as Aaron call it, hollowed ground. Last episode. You've never been to Gettysburg.
Or Antietam.
Or you've never done Harper's Ferry as a battle.
No. Yeah, I've just hiked the trails, been through the town and everything, but I've never, toured the battle itself.
There's everything. I can name everything. I want to take you, we got to go to Brainy Station. That's what I'm looking forward to. And maybe there might be a couple opportunities if there's expressed interest to anybody listening, to join a part of those tours. We set up times and we meet there and we tour. And if someone knows more about it, then they can talk. Because by no means, like I said, am I an expert on majority of the things we talk about. But yeah, I'm excited to do that going forward. But there's a lot we're excited for going into 2024. I'm sorry. And if you have any ideas for us, episode wise, we've got tons of bourbons we've got to do. So
Too many.
Keep sending us recommendations. The likelihood is it's already on our list that we have. But please send us, topics, especially what you'd want to hear in an anniversary year, 160 anniversary of 64 battles. So if there's anything 64, we pretty much are going to have the Valley covered next year. Everything Valley 64 is probably going to get talked about.
Franklin, Tennessee. I know one of our followers really wants us to do that.
Okay, so Franklin. That's good to know. But a little plug here for our friends over at History Fix. If you enjoy historical stories, you can enjoy them on the History Fix platform. Explore movies, short films, and documentaries. All Battlefields and Bourbon podcast fans, so you guys listening, can receive an extra 20% off their first year's annual subscription. So this time of year, if you're looking to get folks gifts, gift them a subscription to History Fix. You can get 20% off when you sign up at www.historyfix.com and use promo code Battlefield. That's BATTLEFIELD, Battlefield, all one word. Every subscription includes a 7-day risk-free trial, so you can escape into history today with History Fix. And thank you to our friends over at History Fix for being great supporters of the podcast. But yeah, going into 2024, excited. That's just the word I would describe.
A full year of content.
Full year of content. I mean, I think I've got us planned minus like 5 episodes for 2024 so far. With guests, with no guests, things like that.
May even have to start going weekly.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not ready to talk about that. No, but it's been super fun. If you folks are looking for ways, if you're just listening, your guys are like, oh, Elijah, Jack, how can we help you? How can we help? We're listening. Become a member of the Battlefields Foundation. But here's my shameless plug for other organizations you can help support. Support the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation, of course. American Battlefield Trust is also doing great work out there. Across the country, Revolutionary War sites as well as War of 1812 sites. So if you're tickling your fancy, they're like at 58,000 acres preserved. The Central Virginia Battlefield Trust, we talked a little bit about them in the last episode about Fredericksburg. They're doing some great work here in Virginia. And another one, I'm just kind of focused on the Virginia ones for some reason, are the ones I know off the top of my head. The Appomattox Petersburg Preservation Society. It's a group of young, like-minded individuals that are on a mission to, tell as much as the story of the campaigns from Petersburg to the surrender of Appomattox as they can. So look them up. That's the Appomattox Petersburg Preservation Society, and I'm sure we will have a couple of their board members, as well as some topics related to their mission on a couple episodes in the future. So those are my shameless plugs going into the new year. If they're just finding ways to support other groups. Do you have anything, Elijah?
Blue and Gray Education Society.
Yes.
They were the ones when we posted the picture of Pelham's Corner. They dedicated that cannon to that site, and they do a lot of great work as well.
So look them up.
Check them out. Give them a follow. And of course, Aaron Civil War Travels.
Aaron Civil War Travels.
Give him a follow. Check out his videos. I mean, he does top-notch stuff with, anything and everything Civil War related. Battles. I mean, some of the least known battles you could ever hear of. He's done a video on it. So, check him out. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. He's on all of it. And he does a great job. Been a great guest for us. Always fun to have on the show.
Oh, yeah. Aaron's family here, so we appreciate you guys listening to him.
You guys have a little back and forth banter. But, yeah, fun to have him on for sure.
Yeah, and plug in any of our former guests. Let's see here. Mike Robinson, if you enjoyed episode 3. 3? 3?
Yes, 3.
Is it 3?
I'm pretty sure it's 3.
It's the first Kernstown episode.
Yep.
Wherever that one is. Mike Robinson was our guest on that. I'm sure you'd appreciate it if you went over and liked his Winchester Tales page this holiday season. Jim Gerker, guest for, God, I don't remember the episode, but it was
7.
It was the 3rd Indiana Cav, East Wing. that episode, which was a great episode. We did the George Remus on that episode. And his book is still out, still available on McFarland Publishing. That is Who's Your Spies and Horse Marines. You can find that on, like I said, McFarland Publishing or Amazon. And yeah, I can't think of any other people we've had on that I know would plug. Nick would tell you to support the Battlefields Foundation.
Phil would probably direct you to the NSSA.
Yeah.
Or something Gettysburg related.
Yeah, Adams County Historical Society.
Yeah.
He'd plug you to them, so go visit. I don't know if the window's still open for you all to vote Best Museum of the Year. I don't know if it's for like USA Today or New York Times or something. But if you go to their Facebook page, the Adams County Historical Society, their new museum, Gettysburg Beyond the Battle, is in the running for like Best New Museum of 2023. Mm-hmm. So if you guys can go vote for that, I'm sure that's what Phil would tell you to do. And that's us speaking for all of our guests.
Yeah.
So far on the show, they could be saying something totally different, but
we'll hear it from them in a little bit.
Yeah, your words are our words for now. But yeah, thank you all again so much for listening, for getting us here to episode 13 at the end of 2023. It's been a blast, and like my keyword is excited. We are super, super excited going into 2024. So if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, comments, concerns, please message us, email us, let us know. We are always looking for ways to improve the podcast. So Merry Christmas, you all.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Have a happy New
holidays.
Year. Yeah, we will
Happy New Year.
Yeah. See everybody in 2024.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next year, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. No.
Maybe.
We will.
We'll be around.
All right. Thank you guys so much. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.